The selfie was great. Sergio Aguero with David Cameron and Xi Jinping. Alpesh B.Patel is here, CEO of Profinium Partners.
Morning, Alpesh.
Morning.
Syria?
Well, it looks like we're going to be bombing. That seems a foregone conclusion, given the parliamentary majority. What annoys me about this is I think there's a misunderstanding as to why we're looking to bomb, or those who are in favour of it are in favour of the bombing. This is not, as Jeremy Corbyn says, we're not going to be able to bomb our way to democracy, but that's not the point of it. This is part of a 100-year war, and I think the sooner we realise that, the better. It's been 25 years since Iraq. We're a quarter of the way into that 100-year war, and it's going to take that long. Once we realise that, we're going to stop blaming ourselves, because that's what seems to happen in the media that I've read in the West, that it's somehow the fault of the West. You could just as easily argue it wasn't anything to do with Iraq. It was as much the Russians going into Afghanistan against the Mujahideen, which converted into the Taliban, into Al-Qaeda, or that this has been going on for 1,000 years, since the Crusades. Whichever way you look at it, it's part of a 100-year war. And the sooner we realise this is just a minute part of it, which won't change much, will change maybe a little, then the sooner we'll come to terms with the fact that we're going to be attacked until we bomb. We are going to be attacked in the West until we bomb. That's the point at which they'll stop attacking us. Until we're forced into action and they're wiped out.
So in your opinion, is this 100-year war involve boots on the ground in Syria?
Sooner or later, but I wish it wasn't ours. It always ends up having to be the West, and then we get blamed. And then we get blamed. And then we're told, oh, it's all because of you guys. This would have happened whether we went 7 sorties. All the time, constantly. They're bombing a little bit. They should be doing a hell of a lot more, and it should be their troops going in. I mean, the region's a mess in any event. It's their mess, their regional mess. It should be the Emiratis going in. They've been buying all our armaments. It's surely not for show. Use them. Stand up and be our allies for a change, instead of us always being your allies.
So what do you really think about it, Alpesh? No, always good.
Straits Times, it broke yesterday.
So this is the AirAsia crash, right? 162. It was an Airbus 320, 321. Here's the thing. So they say during the flight, there were 4 times the rudder control system malfunctioned. 23 times the previous year there were complaints.
Exactly.
I mean, that's a shame on the for not getting that sorted.
You're exactly right, and it's a bigger problem about how corporations are run globally. It's not just this airline, but why do we never see headlines of corporate directors going to prison for criminal negligence? This is how they're running the company. Look, the VW case hasn't led to fatalities, but there was an act of criminality, let alone the credit crunch. How many people, again, lives weren't lost directly, but they were made into utter misery. Why is it corporations around the world and their executives just seem to get away pretty much with murder? And until there's corporate criminal negligence and they're put into prison, this kind of thing sadly is going to continue.
It was the way the crew tried to deal with the problem that eventually led to the plane going
they did
out
a
of
system
control.
restart.
Okay, but a lot of people watch us in Asia. Surely they will be thinking, what are safety checks like? What are maintenance systems like in Asia? Can we trust them?
Do you know, I don't think it's an Asian thing.
The
to
plane
do with
was
this.
serviced in Asia.
No,
That's
you're
what
right.
I'm saying.
You're absolutely right about that. But when you look at the international and global standards, and with this airline, that are maintained across the board, if it was about low standards being lower in one particular part of the world, as we saw with airports in Sharm el-Sheikh or whatever, there's a whole global body which comes down upon them. So I don't think it was the fact that, is it this particular airline? I think it's a problem across corporations, and not just this. It's not as if this airline's got a bad track record.
Sure.
And actually, if it was going to be corporations which don't have a good record, you would have thought it would have been in the poorest countries, the most difficult countries in which to run an airline, where you would have seen crashes. But because there's a global standard, that doesn't happen. But again, my worry is that wealthy corporation such as this. AirAsia is a big, global, wealthy corporation. I think it's the people at the top, not the poor staff at the bottom, who are probably working all hours and all shifts to try and make it work. I think until people go to prison at the top, you'll continue getting these kind of problems, not just in this industry, but right across the board. The rich and the wealthy are not being held accountable for what happens to broader society.
Okay. Let's talk about Brazil here. Financial Times, Brazil's record fall in its economic output. I think it says it puts it in on its worst track since a recession in the 1930s. Brazil, once one of the the bee in bricks that was supposed to be supporting global growth.
Yeah, and what a terrible story for the rest of us in the world, because it was supposed to be one of those countries which meant we were all going to get wealthier, which meant that global growth and GDP was going to increase. We'd help solve some of the world's problems. It wouldn't just be America and China holding up the rest of the world with the Japanese and the Brits and so on. And we've been let down. We've been let down yet again by emerging markets because, for whatever reason, either they're badly run, or credit booms run out, or commodity prices fall, or whatever else it is. Their economies are too fragile. And if you're an investor today, you really end up looking to the Western companies.
Yeah, can I ask you this? Isn't it the point? This is what I always believe anyway. This is the point that during the financial crisis, when we had all these banks, the American Central Bank, the Fed, printing all this cheap money, billions and billions, all that money was flowing into the BRICS, Brazil and parts of Asia, all got their hands on that money and didn't use it properly. And instead of looking at the fundamentals of their economy and, developing the economy, it was used for God only knows what. But when things started to improve, all that money started flowing back out of those countries, and this is what we're left with.
Institutions such as the World Bank, the IMF, have still got a huge job to do in training people up to run economies more effectively. But before we blame them too much about mismanagement, let's just remember, we're based in the UK, we're based in the West. Look at American mismanagement with the economy to begin with, and the global destruction, financial destruction that caused. So I don't want to necessarily blame the Brazilians for mismanagement. No. We're pretty good at it and can teach them a thing or two about mismanagement ourselves. My point is that before we hold too much hope for these emerging markets, we put too much responsibility on them to bail us out in terms of global growth, I think we need to diversify our outlook a bit more and say, look, actually, the future isn't there quite yet. We're still going to be relying on the EU, the US, and places like India and China as representing global trade, and for a heck of a long time yet before we get overexcited again about emerging economies.
Okay, we've got 1 minute 20 to do 3 stories.
Do the
Zuckerberg.
Giving away all his money, almost all of it.
Yeah, well, thanks for that, Mark, because actually your company's employees paid £4,000. Your company paid £4,000 in UK corporation tax in 2014. So 45 billion given away. Well, actually, it's just tax money which has gone into your pocket. We're grateful, and I'm sure it'll go to great causes like Bill Gates and Warren Buffett have led the way on that. He did give lots of staff bonuses, £35 million in share bonuses to his 362 UK staff. So it might be time to get a job at Facebook.
Actually, Facebook had posted a loss in the UK last year, didn't they? They posted a loss of something like 28 million.
Which is extraordinary when you've got $3 billion of profits worldwide. So thanks for giving all the money away, Mark, but, we'd prefer it you gave it in tax instead.
I told Tom, the producer who puts the newspapers together, that with you two here, we just need 2 stories, right?
No.
So we've still got 2 to go. We've got about 20 seconds. Worth investing in property in Turkey. What an amazing rise in 1 year.
What a lovely neighbourhood. Nice, quiet, peaceful neighbourhood to settle into. Lots of... can you imagine the price has been rising? I don't know who's done the maths on that. I think there's a minus sign missing somewhere.
Alpesh, good stuff. Gotta
Alpesh, thank you very much indeed. Bye-bye.
See you later.
Bye.